I tell you this very strange story. I got a phone call once in Minnesota, and the person online had a very heavy Indian accent from India. And he says, "Hello, are you a Makubal?" I thought it was a prank joke. I said, "Yes." He says, "Do you do exorcism? Do you chase dibuks out of people?" I said, "Yeah, all the time." He said, "You think you can help my wife?" I said, "Sure." I'm waiting for, like, what's the joke here? The guy says, "Okay, we'll be there in 40 minutes, and he hangs up. I said, "Whoa, what happened here?" I thought it was my brother. So I called my brother. I said, "What was the punchline to that joke?" He says, "What joke?" Wasn't him. 40 minutes later, a car pulls up. There's a guy in the car with his wife. He is Indian from Israel. She is Israeli. And she has a serious problem. There's a dibuk in her. Making a long story short. He, coming from India, believes in all this, healers, and she has this thing in her that's making her crazy, dangerous. So they went to all the healers that they could find in Eretz Yisrael, and they went to Mekubolim, and the Mekubolim gave them kameyas, all sorts of stuff, and it's just getting worse. So they decided to come to America to see if they can find in America some kind of a healer. They came to Minnesota, and they went to a healer, and the healer went into a whole trance and said, "Get out. Go away. This thing is too strong for me. It's going to get me crazy also." So they really panicked, and they decided that they must find a Mekubal to help. So they called the Reform Temple. They didn't know it. It was listed under synagogues. So they called the Reform Temple, and they said, "We're looking for a Mekubal." They said, "Call Chabad." So he calls the Chabad house, and that's what the phone call was. And it's serious. I said, "Oh, listen, I'm not a Mekubal, and I didn't know that this was serious. But if you really want help, give me your name and your mother's name. I'll call the Rebbe, 770, and we'll get a bracha from the Rebbe. But you have to promise you'll do whatever the Rebbe tells you." They promised. I got an answer within an hour. The Rebbe's answer was, "Diyuk bekashrus ho'achila v'shtia." Be really careful that what you eat and drink are kosher. This was on a Friday. They lived on the other side of town. I couldn't get there and back before Shabbos. So I called him up. I said, "David, here's what you're going to do. Go to the supermarket and buy some sardines and some matzah, and that's all you're going to eat for Shabbos. Because I can't explain to you they know no idea what kosher was." Fine. After Shabbos, I call him up. I said, "Everything was okay?" He says, "Yeah, I went down to the supermarket. There was a guy there with a yarmulke, and he showed me, okay. We had plenty to eat for Shabbos." Okay. After Shabbos, we went, made the kitchen kosher, changed all the ingredients, the whole business. 2 weeks later, he calls me and says, "Much better." At night, she would become violent. She hasn't been violent. Much better.
Oh, wow.
They came for Pesach to the Seder at the Chabad house. I did not recognize her. Completely different face. He calls me up one day and he says, you know, I lost my job. He came to America on a job visa. Now without the job, he's not legal. He can't stay in America. He doesn't want to go back to Eretz Yisrael because his daughters are going to be drafted into the army, and he's against violence and war. So he went to a psychic to ask for advice, and the psychic said to him, "Oh, your wife is having a big problem, and she's getting a lot of help from this man," and she started describing the Rebbe. So he said, she said, "Go to him, he's going to help." So he said, "We went to him. He said to keep kosher." So the psychic said, "That's all? Do it. Because when you're keeping kosher, he can send you this healthy energy." So he said, "We're doing it. It's just the milk." There was no Chalav Yisrael in those days in Minnesota. We went to the farm once a month. We would do the milking, and we would freeze the milk, and we had for a month. So for a while, he was coming to buy the milk from the Chabad house. But it's a schlep. So he says, "We're doing it, it's just the milk, it's such a problem." So she screamed at him. She said, "Don't be ridiculous, get a freezer." He said, all right. Anyway, he couldn't wait to call me and tell me that this woman described the Rebbe. So I said, I don't know if I can believe this. You know, they're a little weird. I said, "Are you going to go back to her?" He says, "Yeah, on Wednesday." I said, "Can I come with you?" He said, "Sure." So I'm going to meet this psychic, like a witch. Anyway, I walk in. It's a young woman there smoking a cigarette. But this is the psychic. So I asked her, "You described the rabbi in Brooklyn?" She said, "Oh, yeah." And she gave me the whole description again. He didn't need to be born. He's only here to help others. Okay. I said, "Do you always remember what you see in your trance?" She says, "No." I said, "So how come you remember this?" She says, "Are you kidding? After seeing him, I couldn't wait for David to leave, and I could call my teacher and my friends and say, 'I saw a really holy man.'" Anyway, I thought that was pretty cute, yeah? He did not find a job. So he comes to me one day, and he says, "Would it be terribly selfish of me to ask the Rebbe for another bracha?" I said, "No, give me your name and your mother's name, and I'll write in." He gives me the name. I write in. No answer. 2 days, 3 days, a week, no answer. I keep calling Rabbi Klein. What's going on? The letter is sitting on top of the pile. The Rebbe is not answering. I don't know what to tell you. Finally, one day he calls me, and he says the Rebbe wants to know her name and her mother's name. I said, "Why?" I said, "Why?" And Rabbi Klein said, "Excuse me?" I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean why." I didn't mean why. I'm just a little surprised because he has the problem, not she. Anyway, I called her because I didn't remember her mother's name. And just as a joke, I said, "How was your dibuk?" She says, "I ignore it." I said, "Wait a minute, it's still there?" She said, "Yeah, it's not a problem. I can ignore it." I said, Are you drinking chalav? She says, "We tried the frozen milk. It doesn't taste the same." said, that's why it's not gone yet. I said, you know, you promised to do whatever the Rebbe would say. Remember that? She said, okay, I'll do it. Anyway, never got an answer for him. Didn't see him for a long, long time. Over a year. And then one day, while I was shopping, I see him in the store. I go over to him, David, how are you? What's going on? Where have you been? He says, well, we couldn't stay in America without a job, so we went to Canada. In Canada, I went through the whole legal thing. I had a lawyer, and now I'm legal. I can come back to the United States. I said, how's everybody? How's the family? He says, well, you'll probably be happy to know that we're divorced. I said, why would I be happy to know that you're divorced? He says, because I'm not Jewish. He came to Eretz Yisrael as a teenager. He learned Hebrew, went to the army. Everybody assumed he was Jewish. He's not Jewish. So the name that he gave me to write into the Rebbe was a fake name. So he never got an answer. But she went back to Eretz Yisrael with her kids, and she's living a Jewish life, and she's keeping Chalav Yisrael. So, why should you keep Chalav Yisrael? You want to have a dibuk? Anyway, Chalav Yisrael is absolutely essential. It's not optional. And this excuse that the government watches, the government doesn't watch anything. It's a joke. And even if the government watches, Chalav Yisrael means a Jew has to watch. Otherwise, it damages your neshama. So be careful.